Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Better Call Saul, Season 3, Episode 8. It's called Slip. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, we're still kind of building into, whatever the next part of the show is. Because obviously it felt like the end of a sort of big chunk with the Chuck court case and all that.
Yeah.
And now we're building back up, but you can kind of see... I think there's a better sense of where it's heading now.
There is, yeah. I mean, the title itself is kind of an indication of where we're going.
Yeah, Slippin' Jimmy. And obviously none of it's surprising. Like, we've been talking about where it might be going soon. After all this. So it's none of it's surprising per se, but it's definitely given us a clearer picture on a couple of things. What I thought was interesting, I think this might be the most balanced episode in terms of characters.
Yeah, there's a bit of everyone, isn't there?
I felt like there was like 4 clear plots, and I feel like all 4 stories got equal time, more or less, including Nacho, who typically doesn't get his own little plot line, but he even in this episode he got his own couple of scenes that built up his own thing.
Yeah.
So we'll start with him actually, since I brought that up. So first of all, he did put something in the capsules. Suck it.
I've forgotten we'd had that conversation. It was 2 weeks ago.
Aye, but you argued with me, so I'm telling you to suck it.
No. I mean, I did say if he does put something in, it'll be something nothing. It won't be something to actively hurt him.
Oh, sure, but I argued about the weight, and then...
all right, okay.
So,
but you know, it was just ibuprofen, I think.
Yeah, it was just something. Yeah, it was something
Just
generic.
painkillers, yeah.
But he's doing that. He's doing his whole thing, and he's like practicing slipping it in. To use that word again, slip. But he's throwing it. He's walking past the jacket, and he's throwing it in, and you can see just the fear on his face. He's nervous because this is like, it's a hard thing to do, kind of, and not be caught doing it. But also just the fact that he's going up against Salamanca, who's this crime boss, who's this scary guy. But what I really liked about this scene is that it ends with his like father, because he's doing this like sort of at his dad's shop when he's not there, and his dad comes in at the end, and he's just sort of, they have a, oh hey son, what are you doing here? Help me with this thing. But it's just normal sort of small talk starting the day. But what I really liked about it is that he's really struggling, and you can almost see in his face, he's like, can I do this? Can I do this? And then the reminder of why he's doing it arrives, and he sees his father, and it's like, no, it's like a reinforced determination to get it right.
Yeah, it really tells him, it's like, this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that. And then the scene itself, when he's doing it, it's funny because I thought all the scenes a few weeks ago when we had him sitting in front of Salamanca at the shop, and the guys are coming in, giving their week's drug money or whatever, and he's counting it, and he beats the guy up. That scene on its own at the time worked really well. It had its own purpose at the time.
Yeah.
But now in retrospect, it has a new second purpose, because this time we know what this routine is. We've seen all the movements, what the minute to minute is. So having that knowledge, it really helps us understand just how little time he has between each part of the process. Like, he's trying to sneak in the pills into the cup when
we know how long things should take because we've seen it.
Yeah,
and then we know that they'll be aware of that as well.
Yeah. And it is suitably quite tense.
It is. It's very tense, given that he's literally just sat in a chair.
Yeah, and he's he's dropping the money intentionally to. Because at first I thought, wait, is he actually found a counterfeit bill? Oh no, this is just his plan to get close and distract him and whatever. Like, this is his plan in motion. But I really. Simple scenes, and even just at the end when because obviously he breaks in the night before and breaks the air conditioning just so that the jacket will definitely be off. It's really that simple. The jacket needs to be off, so he's just making sure it's hot. But of course, after he does it and he goes up to, he's like, Don Salamanca, can I get you an espresso or whatever? And he goes up to the machine and he's just pouring a sweat. And it's just funny because it's obviously because he's nervous, but it's also because he himself broke the air conditioner. There's just this.
Yeah. It stops him looking guilty.
Yeah.
Because if you're there just sweating in a air conditioned room, people will be like, "Why? What's going on?"
Yeah, but they're all sweating. So.
Well, exactly. That's it, isn't it? It's this hot room, so it doesn't look out of the ordinary.
Yeah. So I also enjoyed that stuff. Obviously, we'll see where that goes. Obviously, I think we start to think: is this how he ends up in the chair? Is this what sends him into this? Does he have a stroke or something as a result of not
having his medication? Yeah, I think that's the obvious conclusion.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that there's probably something more on top of it that we don't see yet.
Possibly.
I would assume that it's how it affects Nacho. For some reason, maybe something goes wrong.
Yeah, maybe. But no, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't think when the show started, with we met Nacho, when he first came to talk to Saul. I mean, we'd seen him before in Breaking Bad, but not to the same extent we've seen him in this show. He's definitely had a lot more time in this. Like, I don't think I ever thought, oh, I'll be really into one of his scenes like this where I'm really sweating. But the thing is, because over the course of this show, we've seen that he is kind of vulnerable. Like, when they went into Los Polos and he's like, no, let the kid go. Like, don't.
Yeah.
Like, he's got some honor about him. But on top of that, the fact that he's doing this to protect his father, who is like an innocent businessman.
Yeah, I mean, his inherent, like, actually being a good person has been long established. We had all the stuff with him and Mike last season, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
at least as good as you can be when you're in this.
Well, yeah. He's in this business, but he's not a bad person.
Yeah, he's not a thief, but it's the same thing as a thief with a heart of gold kind of mentality. Yeah. The drug dealer with the heart of gold doesn't have quite the same ring to it, but
it doesn't. No.
But again, arguably, was he ever actually the one selling the drugs? He's more of a
distributor.
I was going to maybe say like the accounting side of the business.
Yeah. I think it is clear he is involved in the accounting. So, like, obviously, even when his dad comes in at the start, his reason for being there early is he's going through the invoices.
Yeah, he's obviously good with that stuff.
Yeah.
It's another part of this whole tragedy aspect of the show where you're like, oh, he could just, once this is through, he could just work it with his dad. He seems to know what he's doing and he could be good at that.
Well, I mean, even that, like, you see clearly he's good with accounts, numbers, money. He could probably work in a bank if he wasn't into like all this life of crime.
But yeah, so that was natural stuff. I really liked as well. Just we see the various guys come in again. Like we see the one that he beat up.
Yeah.
And he's who's a character from Breaking Bad. I forget his name, but he's popped up before. But like him and like he's sitting there with a bruised face, and he's like, "No, you're good." And it's just. Again, it's like it's almost relief from Nacho as well that he doesn't have to beat him up again. He doesn't want to.
It's the fact that it would have to be worse this time as well, because it would be like you didn't learn your lesson from the last one.
Yeah, he'd have to break his goddamn legs this time, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Unless he actually wants him to make it up next week, in which case he'll have to walk for that, and maybe it's more of a tactical strike. Like, where does he want to hurt that he can still
break
function?
one of his arms?
An arm would do it. Yeah, I think an arm would do it. Break off his fingernails, maybe.
Yeah, that seems a little bit too sadistic, though.
Shows where my mind goes, doesn't it? Mike, let's jump over to Mike. Mike, a couple of scenes. Obviously, had the ending scene. Like, we had the cliffhanger with him. If you can even call it that, but Saul and Breaking Bad have kind of always had this thing where they'll have this big ending that feels like a cliffhanger, even though it's not really a cliffhanger. It's just, oh, this is like an advancement. There's like a big advancement in the.
Yeah, there's something to come next, but it's not really edge of your seat cliffhanger.
No, but it is important. But we see Mike goes out in the old desert road, as we've seen him do many a time. He's got his metal detector, and he's looking around. And did you get what he was looking for before he found?
I didn't, not before he found it. No.
Yeah, me neither. Because obviously, you don't necessarily think of the body. Obviously, you see the wedding ring or whatever, and you say, okay, that's why the metal detector works in this instance. But I don't think your mind instantly jumps to that's what he's looking. I thought he was looking for the guns that the drug runners always leave behind.
Yeah. I wasn't entirely sure. I was like, he's clearly there with purpose.
Yeah.
And there's something specific that he's looking for.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure what.
There's that bird's eye view as well, where you see like all the different, the time kind of overlaps, and you see him all around the desert looking for stuff. And that's a really simple effect. It's really easy to do, with the exception of the time constraint. As someone who's made stuff, the thought of actually having to film it so that you have them do all the different parts.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously they do a lot of time lapses anyway, and this feels like almost a cheating time lapse because obviously the filming element's still the same. You still got to do all the filming.
Yeah.
But in terms of how much time it is on the screen, there's actually less of it because it all overlaps.
Yeah, obviously, I think effects shots obviously end up costing more, but it does make it this weird thing where you're spending more per second because you're spending like a whole day filming this one thing that's only going to last.
Yeah,
compared to like
I would say the beauty of it is because it is just one actor that you need. You can kind of do that, and everyone else can still be doing other scenes that day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this could very well be second unit. we're looking at with this. At least that shot where they're doing
I have no reason to suspect that it would not need to be.
Yeah, I don't think the actual director's worried that they can't pull off like a static shot.
Exactly, they don't have to do that much, do they? They just sit there and watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Although obviously you see like the holes that he's dug sort of appearing as well on the screen, and I laugh because I know that he's not obviously digging all them himself. They'll have like some people come in and dig out the little hole and then run off again so that they can keep doing it. But yeah, so he finds the body, and it's quite clear what he's been looking for. He's looking for the Good Samaritan, as we've come to know the person who died from Salamanca, and he makes a call to whoever owns that land and points it out. Says, "I don't want to let go myself to the police because I technically was trespassing, but you should sort this out." And he wants to give the family closure. Again, it's this kind of what that the woman he met at the meeting who talked about her husband going missing years ago. He wants to give closure to whoever lost him. And you see that's weighing on his conscience. So that was a really nice scene in of itself, because you see that this is eating away at him.
And he's doing as much as he can. He's like, he can't fix it, but he can at least give them something.
Yeah. But ultimately, at the end of the episode, we see him like take out all of his money, and he like I think it's kind of a realization of the line that he's in. Like, he's in so deep now that something could happen to him, and he's worried about his family not being taken care of. And we see him get out of the car, and sure enough, he's at Los Polos, and he goes in to see Gus, and he's like that money's, it's hidden in a box in my closet. Like, no one's going to see any of it if something happens to me. I need it to be taken care of in a sort of way that should something happen, that the money goes to the people that I want it to go to, that kind of thing. And Gus brings up some very good points about how, well, they can't really publicly be seen together because some people will make connections. Because as far as like Salamanca or anybody like that knows right now, they don't even know each other. They're completely disconnected. But they make some kind of pact, and it ends with them. Obviously, the final shot is them shaking hands, and it's kind of like, oh, this is the real start of the relationship. There's like
and you get that moment again where Gus proves he's not. I won't say he's not evil, but he respects the people he works with.
Yeah, because Mike offers 10-20%.
I think it was 20%, because Gus says, "Oh, I've got this other way, but it's dangerous." And Mike jumps to the conclusion that he's going, "Hey, you need money to smooth it over."
I think what's important about this is the first time Mike's went to him and like actually made a deal with him. Every other time, like he's been investigating because he wants to know who's watching him and stuff, and it's been Gus coming to him and asking him to do things. But this is the first time it's been a mutual, like, I need something from you, so now he kind of owes Gus something, and this is the start of a working relationship in that sense.
I think that's why the handshake ends the episode. Because like you say, before it was, this is just this favor here, favor there, whereas this is an ongoing agreement now. Yeah,
it's the start of that part of Mike's life, so that's it's exciting in that sense. But that's obviously what ends the episode. So we jump over to Chuck, and I thought Chuck had some interesting scenes as well. Yeah, we see him, because obviously the last time we saw him was when he was out in the street. He was trying to make the phone call. Turns out he was phoning his doctor, who we did see. I believe this is Clea Duvall. We did see her as the doctor. Season 1, maybe in season 2 as well. I can't remember, but I remember her trying to convince Saul to put him in a hospital or something like that, and commit him basically. And he's basically talking about how he's rating his pain like on a scale of 1 to 10 each day. He's keeping charts, and now it's down to like a 5 instead of like an 8. And it's like he's getting better. He's trying to fight it. And he talks about how embarrassing it was. And do you know what I'm liking about this Chuck stuff? Is that, do you know, like when we said that his wife said, "Oh, he's got a mental illness," and that made us feel, "Oh, yeah, maybe we should be treating him with a bit more, not the contempt we had for him. Maybe was kind of ill-advised, and it was more of like a TV thing because he was the antagonist to our protagonist." And I like that since then. Because it's been proven to him, he even brings up, it's been proven to me, so what if it's like he's actively trying to solve the problem. Now that he knows he can potentially solve the problem, he's working at it.
We've spoke often how he's a very logical and rational man, and he's clearly very smart. And he thinks about this and goes, "Look, without a shadow of doubt, this was proved to me. I can't just ignore that."
Even him calling it embarrassing, saying it's the worst day of his life, there was an honesty there that I feel like Chuck hasn't always had.
It's kind of it's humbled him, hasn't it? The whole thing.
It kind of has. Now he's still a little bit like moving a bit fast because he's like, oh, I can't wait till I've got a party and I can have all the lights on, I can do this, I can do that, I can be back at work, I can be in court. And she's like, slow down, you could regress if you move too fast.
Yeah, this is kind of his hubris in general. He's
Yeah.
so confident in himself and his own abilities that he can't fathom that he can't defy the odds.
And when she points this out, he's like, yeah, but every case is different, you would agree with that. And he goes into lawyer mode almost. He argues with
does,
He's trying to like out doctor the doctor by saying, but there's examples, there's precedents.
He really goes with the technicalities. It's like, yeah, but you don't know.
Yeah, and to be fair, he does kind of back down eventually. He does kind of, at least easier than I would have expected him to before. So no, there's real growth there. And then I loved he goes for his groceries and he goes to the supermarket. And obviously he's struggling. He's repeating things to himself, colors of things, and what he's buying, just like yellow floor, red car, all that kind of thing. He's basically trying to take his mind off all the electricity.
I think it's a focus, isn't it?
Yeah, but I loved this scene because he's like, oh yeah, the soy milk. It's up past the freezer section, and he turns into the aisle, the freezer aisle, and it's just freezers all the way down on both sides, and it's just this long shot, and it reminds me of a scene in a horror movie where it's like the car to get away is there, but you have to go through all these dangerous, past all these dangerous
exactly
doors.
What it is.
Yeah. And even the way it's shot, because then it cuts to this, long focus shot behind the soy milk, and it pulls to the focus, and it's like, oh, he has to make this trip down this.
It feels like, maybe not a horror movie, but like an action movie where it's like there's your exit. Now, like, here's the gauntlet that you've got to run through to get.
It was exactly that. It was the perfect way of capturing it. The way they shot it, it was perfect.
Yeah.
I had a smirk in my face as soon as they framed up that aisle. It was like, oh man, this is big.
It's great.
And they cut away halfway through. It seems like he's starting to struggle, and it cuts away. But we see him later on with Hamlin, who's about to tell him about his malpractice insurance, which we know Saul's messed up for him.
Yep. He may have skyrocketed that nicely.
Yeah, we don't actually get to see the results of that scene. Well, I'm sure we'll see more on that next time. But that's where we leave off.
That said, I don't know how much we need to see in terms of other than his reaction. We don't need to see the information because.
Oh, exactly.
It's
yeah. I just mean that we'll now have scenes past when he knows and what's he going to do about it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'll be really interested to see how he reacts. Like, does he get pissed off and go after Saul, or does this new humbled Chuck try and tackle it a different way?
I can kind of see the fact that he knows that the mental illness is a reality, and he would have to accept that, because until he can prove that he's okay, that is maybe just a cost that comes with it in terms of doing business. Yeah,
I mean, it's arguable that they would have found out eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe that's how they'll look at it. It'll be, but maybe not. Maybe this will be the regression that the doctor was worried about.
Could be.
In fact, yeah, maybe it's the effect of Saul that'll make him regress, and Saul will almost be the cancer to him now, because he's
that'd
infecting
be quite
his
sad,
life.
wouldn't it?
It would be really sad, especially since he's been such the good force in his life until Chuck ruined it, backed away. But I could see it. Now we mentioned Hamlin, so let's jump over to Kim. I'm saving Saul for last, obviously. Kim, again, so very interesting scenes. Obviously, some of them were with Saul, but she has the dinner scene. She goes to see the Vesa Merde people, and he's like, oh, I've got this buddy who's got this thing. He needs a lawyer's opinion, and she doesn't take on the case, but she's like, yeah, I'd be happy to look over it and like sort of point him in the right direction of where to go for representation, kind of thing. But of course, the interesting thing in this scene is that Hamlin's there with some of his clients from his law firm, and he comes over and says hi because he knows them, and it feels very awkward for Kim, and it feels very
it's very much just doing the polite thing.
Yeah, and then she gets up and she's like, excuse me, she has to go and she writes a check and she goes over it and she does the same thing at his table.
Yeah,
essentially the exact same thing, and she hands him a check, and you get that she's probably, because we knew that they'd swallowed all of her debt, all of her like education costs.
The law school stuff.
Yeah, and she goes and sits back down. And what I love about the shot when she sits back down is that you see Hamlin in the background out of focus looking over, and I swear I was willing to bet money that he was about to get back up and come back over to the table, and I thought we were going to be like doing ping pong between the tables for a little while.
No, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
He definitely considered it.
Yeah, you could see it. You could see it, even though it was out of focus. You could feel it in his face, even though you couldn't really quite make out his like expression.
Yeah.
But obviously the dinner's end, and he comes and confronts her after everyone else has left. He's like, "What the hell is this?" And they have this fight, and this is one of the things that Saul does really well, where you can see both sides of the argument, where he's like, I have to like babysit all my clients and ensure them that we are up to the task of looking after them after what you pulled. What you did in there was a complete, it was a shit show. You did all this, and you dragged this man through the mud. You dragged us through the mud, and it's kind of tied into that thing where like Rebecca had the same kind of point where he's mentally ill. You shouldn't have tackled it that way. But then she also hits back with some valid points. It's like, well, yeah, he was mentally ill, and you just kind of ignored it because it suited you for so long.
Yeah, and she says if you put this out public and it hadn't had to come out this way, then you wouldn't be rushing around now because it would have been, you could have controlled the story essentially.
And it's this weird thing where I think in the scene both of them are at fault for something, but both of them are making valid points about what the other person did. It's really well balanced in that sense, and I really appreciate that. And you can see in Hamlin's face he feels it when he's like, damn, she's got a point as she like gets in her car.
Yeah. That's the problem. He knows she's right, but he's angry anyway.
Yeah, he's pissed off. But once he calms down, maybe he can.
Yeah. He's, again, much like Chuck, he is a very rational man, and maybe even more so at times because he doesn't often have that emotional connection that drives him that extra edge.
Yeah.
This is one of those few times that I've really seen him emotional.
And I actually kind of like Hamlin. I think it's going to be really interesting that I'm starting to sympathise with Chuck and a bit more with Hamlin. And maybe by the end of the show, will I like not sympathise with Saul as much? Will it be kind of like Breaking Bad, and that by the end of the show he is kind of the villain?
Yeah, it's a villain in a very different way, but
yeah,
ultimately he could very well be. Yeah,
it could feel that way. And of course, the other scene she has, the main scene she has with Saul, where she's back in the office, and she's looked through the documents for this case that she was asked to sort of just eye over and recommend. And she goes in to see Saul, and he's lying there on his back. We'll get to why he's on his back in a minute, but he's got the money for her, and she's like, look, I can cover us for a few months, so you don't have to actually keep up your half. And he's basically pissed off at her. He immediately snaps, and he's like, no, take it. Why are we still talking about this?
That really hurt his pride.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's something the brothers kind of have in common. They both have their hubris.
I think it's particularly amusing to me with Jimmy, though, because obviously he is so slippery. So, like he's very willing to, bend morals and do what he has to do, but he's still very proud.
Yeah. And you see, like, it's actually a very awkward scene in a good way. Like, it's very awkward as she's leaving, and she like, okay, that's fine. Like, she's sort of accepts it, and she's kind of like worried about what he's going to do, and because he says as she's leaving, like, you believe me, right? That I'll keep up my end of the money. And she's like, yeah, I believe you. And she goes out and she's like, cancel the courier, and she grabs the box and she phones the guy herself, and she's like, look, I can do something for you. And we see that she is like getting no sleep, that she is working day. Even Saul's like, no, you didn't see me yesterday, you saw me 2 days ago when you came by to pick up clothes at the house. Like, she is living at that office. She is up to her neck in work, and she's taking on this extra case because she doesn't believe that he can.
Yeah.
She knows that he's proud. She knows that he's going to be determined to do it, but she's going to fight through for him. And it makes you kind of like, I mean, she's already a deep character, but it makes you really respect her in a really sort of deep way, that she cares enough about him that she's going to struggle through this, and it makes you even more sympathetic to her.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because she's trying to fight through this herself to keep him afloat.
Again, she's kind of proud as well. She doesn't want to. Yeah. She doesn't want to accept defeat and say, no, you can't do this. She's just not willing to say that this is too much work for her. She just does it anyway.
And I can see her messing up with her Mesa Verde because she's taking on too much.
Oh, if she gets a number wrong.
And I think it's part pride, but I think it's also is about Saul. It's about her not wanting to hurt his pride because she knows that she she knows what he's like, and she can't. And
but she is too proud to admit that she's got too much on.
Yeah, she is, and it's obvious. It's like when you don't have time to go home and sleep at night. Yeah, you're doing too much. Arguably, you're doing too much long before that, even. But
but that's a clear warning sign.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's talk about Saul. So we open with a flashback.
Yes.
To his parents' store that we've seen before, but this time it's like, when he's an adult. He's with his buddy Marco, of course, who died at the end of season 1, and But this is actually, it's implied that this is right before we see them do the coin con, because
It is, yeah.
he's there getting his old coin collection because he used to hide the coins, and he tells this story about how he told his father one day, oh, this quarter that he gave us was like, this is worth a few dollars because it's rare, and the dad's, oh, I'm going to tape it to the register and try and get the guy's coin back because we shouldn't keep this. And like it all eventually ran down, and he talks about his dad being a sucker and how everyone owed him money because they'd give him a sob story, and he'd like, oh yeah, take your milk and stuff, and you can.
I think it's
pay
really
back.
interesting because we kind of heard this story before, but from Chuck. Like we heard all of this just from Chuck's perspective about how he'd take money out of the register.
And it also felt like a sequel to that flashback we had, I think, last season, where he was a kid in the store, and the guy came in and conned his dad.
Yeah.
And that felt like it was how he learned not to be a sucker, because
you're right.
It kind of felt like a sequel to that to me, partly because it's in the same room. Obviously, it's years later after it's run down, but this is what happened to it because his dad was, quote unquote, a sucker as far as he's concerned.
Yeah, it was too nice a guy, basically.
Yeah, he wasn't willing to do what Saul didn't think he did what he had to do to keep the place, to make it work. He thought, oh, you could sell booze to the kids from the local school, but he wouldn't do it.
yeah, exactly. I think that kind of tells you why he is how he is now, like how proud he is and how he insists on doing what he has to keep the lights on in the office.
Exactly. Because it's his motivation for this episode. You can see it.
He saw what happened to his dad's shop, and he's not willing to let that happen to Kim.
Yeah. He's not willing to be to Kim what his dad was to his mother.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
And the funny thing is, though, it's not like he's usually when this theme comes up with like men not want to be their fathers, especially when it comes to treating their spouse, kind of like, oh, my father treated my mother, I don't want to be that to my wife or girlfriend. Typically, it's usually because they were abusive or they were awful people or whatever. But in this case, it's the opposite. His dad was a really nice guy.
Yeah, he was too nice to make the hard decisions for the business.
But it's almost like a weird flip on that trope where he doesn't want to be like his father for all the wrong reasons, when you should be trying. I mean, sure, have a bit of a harder edge, but you should aspire to be kind of like he was in this case. And I think it parallels nicely with Nacho's plot as well, where he's like trying to take care of his dad.
It does really nicely as well, because obviously again that's a case where his dad's the nice guy and just doing his job, and he's the one caught up in everything.
Yeah, but it also makes a difference between Nacho and Saul, because Nacho's trying to look out for his dad, whereas Saul basically cut his ties and just started stealing for himself at one point.
Yeah. Saul essentially just looked out for himself and went, "Nah, you're not worth the effort."
And it almost means, despite the fact that Nacho's in the crime organisation, he's part of this awful thing, he's actually kind of a better person to an extent, in at least this sense.
In some respects, yeah.
Than Saul is, and I think that's a really fascinating comparison. So obviously, you go back to the guitar store, the music store, and it's like, oh, the commercial did wonders, and the guy's like, yeah, let's do more commercials. But then the guy comes out, and like, you don't work for the station. It's like, well, no, but that money's only for the air fee. I make the commercials for you. And then the guy's like, yeah, but these guys are just students. We could just get students and do it. Like, we could do this ourselves. We don't need you.
Yep.
And you can see him breaking down. And you see him get the little ID, he sees the drumstick kicking out, and he's like, keep the camera on me. Whatever you do, keep filming. And you know what he's going to do, because as soon as he kicks it out so it's on the floor, you know exactly what he's about to do.
You do.
And it's great, because it does come all the way back to Slippin' Jimmy. This was exactly the sort of thing that he did.
That's how we got the name.
Yeah, so... And there you go, he has a fall, and he obviously cons them. He gets a free guitar, as we see, on top of being paid.
Yeah, the fall itself cracked me up. It looked proper like, like you get in like old movies with the banana peel.
Yeah, it did.
It was very much that sort of fall.
It was very much that. And then later on, of course, he's doing his community service, and the other guy wants to go away because he's I think his kid needs to be seen or whatever.
His kid was sick, I think.
Yeah. And the guy's like, yeah, you can go, but I'm not giving you your time. But he's like, oh, I need the time because like I've got a deadline to make up the time, or the judge is going to throw me in jail or whatever. And Saul goes up to him and is like, look, you pay me $700, I'll get you away for the rest of the day, and you'll still get your hours. And the guy doesn't believe him, obviously. He's like, you know what, if you pull it off, then sure, I will happily pay you.
It's worth it.
Yeah. And he basically combines his lawyer skills with his Slippin' Jimmy. It's like this fusion of the two personas coming together.
Finally, we're getting to Saul. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Saul. It's Better Call Saul, because he uses his lawyer knowledge to basically slime his way in, like, to convince this guy that he can sue him, he can screw him and win. And even if he doesn't win, you'll be paying lawyers for months and you'll lose your job. And like, he scares the guy rigid.
The brilliance of it is, it doesn't even matter if it's true or not. He just has to be convincing.
Yeah, exactly.
And make it sound like he knows what he's talking about. Obviously, he does know what he's talking about, but he could be making it up anyway. And going,
I'm not just like that whole thing. Like, yeah, I signed a waiver, but I'd be suing you personally. Like, I'm not sure that would even work unless the guy actively does something himself.
Right,
yeah.
And that's the thing. The guy doesn't know either,
yeah.
but he doesn't want to risk it at this point because Jimmy does such a good job of convincing him.
Admittedly, I'm like 90% sure this is bullshit, but at the same time, I wouldn't be 100%. So if Saul tried to pull this on me, I might have to not risk it.
That's it, isn't it? It's like, okay, what's the bigger risk? Do you gamble and go, no, go on, I'll see you in court, you can try it, or do you go, sure, you two just piss off?
Actually, Saul just wants to lie down. He doesn't even piss off.
That's true.
He goes for a lie down. His back's still sore.
You're right. Yeah.
But no, that was the Saul plot, and I thought that was really interesting. Even the whole thing, it's almost about the guy swallowing his pride. It's like Jimmy's pride is so strong, and he's not willing to give in, that he has to crush other people's pride. Now, admittedly, the guy is a little bit of a dick, but at the same time, I feel like he probably has to be a dick given his job. He deals with convicts all the time.
Yeah.
So
definitely, you're right, and it was such a great moment. It was. Obviously, I gathered we were getting to the end of the episode because it was just that sort of time, and that shot, where he finally lies down, you get the shot close up on his face. I was convinced that was going to be the end of the episode, just it was going to end on that, like that moment of he won,
yeah, I can see.
and he but then it went into the mic bit, and I thought, oh, that was interesting.
And it's like he's going to keep doing stuff like this to get his money for everything, and somewhere along the lines he's going to get caught in some way or do something over the line. So
yeah,
but anyway, that is this week's Saul. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff helps us out a lot. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz. You can also support the channel by heading over to patreon.com/mildfuzztv and check out some of the bonuses over there if you want to support us. But if not, that's cool too. Just let us know what you think of the episode. Thanks very much for watching once again. We'll see you next time. Have you got any vanilla?